which is this morning, Excel with Excel. The purpose of this webinar, we've got some objectives on here, but the overall objective is it's designed to show you some of the great shortcuts in Excel, but it's mainly designed to make sure you understand the key principles of creating and understanding formulas. So if you've got a formula and it breaks, you can go and fix it, or if you're looking at somebody else's formula, you understand what they've been doing. So I'm going to start with some basics, some of the shortcuts and some of the auto features that you have in Excel. I'm just going to go into that spreadsheet, so if you want to work along with me, feel free. If not, just watch what's happening on the screen. So we have a small sales worksheet here. So we've got different people have been selling different items for different values, but there's some information missing as well. For example, in column A, I'd like to have dates when these products have been sold. Now dates, as you put them in, you type in the day followed by a slash, month, slash, and year, which is quite time consuming. If you want to enter today's date in a cell, which I do in A4, you can use the keyboard shortcut Control and semicolon. So on your keyboard, semicolon is the one next to L, so just hold down Control, semicolon, and there you go, it quickly enters today's date for you. If your system date is wrong in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, then that's going to be wrong too. I now want to enter the dates for everybody else. So I could type them in, I could use Control semicolon all the way down. I could copy and paste. Does anybody know a quick way? Do you want to just use the control panel and the questions if you know a quick way of me putting the dates in? Sorry, just had people saying that they couldn't see my screen. Can you see the spreadsheet now? Okay, fantastic. Sorry about that, guys. I think I must seem to have paused it. I thought I'd checked everything. Let me start again. So this this particular spreadsheet, so wanting to put today's date in cell A4. So keyboard shortcut for today's date is Control and semicolon. So Andrew's here saying do the date and drag it down. Absolutely. So if I'm wanting to fill the date in for the remaining records in this particular spreadsheet, copy and paste would work. Andrew saying drag down, Michelle saying drag down. The feature itself is called Autofill, automatically filling. Not that that matters as long as you know how to use it. And as everybody's saying, it's drag down. That's, I think, what most people call it. In the bottom right-hand corner of the cell that you've got selected is a little square, a little green square there, which is called the Autofill handle, which is to get hold of. And if you put your mouse on the handle, you get a small plus symbol. So with that, I can drag down the list and automatically fill in the dates. Now, because there's a number of things that Excel could have done with those dates, Excel's decided to fill the dates in a sequence, so 5th followed by 6th, 7th, and so on. It's not exactly what I wanted. I wanted all the dates at the same, all to be the 5th, but Excel doesn't know that. It's not a mind reader. So like all Microsoft programs, if the program has done something for you automatically and there was a number of options to choose from, you will always get what's called a smart tag. So below the range that I filled in, I have a little smart tag here, which as I hover over it, it's called autofill options. So options for what I've just filled in. And I can see that these are all the options that Excel possibly could have done, but it decided to fill a series. I wanted to copy the cells so they're now all exactly the same, rather than me going back and manually changing things. So look out for those autofill options when you've filled your range in, because they may really help you. So autofill, fantastic for filling dates and ranges, and we'll see later on with formulas too. So let's just have a look at what we've just done there. So keyboard shortcut, just to remind you, for today's date is Control and semicolon. With autofill, you grab the handle and then maybe use the autofill options if the range that was filled in wasn't exactly what you were looking for. Well, let's go back to my spreadsheet then. So if you think Autofill's good, I think you'll love this, absolutely love this Flashfill. I've got an issue here that I need to sort the names in alphabetical order. What Excel does when it sorts is it sorts by the first letter in a cell, and then the second, so the first two, and then the first three. So in this particular list, Alex would always come first, Alice would always come second, and so on. That's not what I really wanted. I wanted to sort by the surname. Excel won't do that. So I'm just going to right-hand click on column C and insert a column. So I'm going to have to separate the first names and the surnames, or have the surnames in a second column. How long is that going to take me to type all these surnames in? And this is just a small list. And this is where Flashfill comes in, really handy. So Flashfill doesn't just look at the cell that you've got, it looks at the cell that you've typed data into, and then it looks at the surrounding cells to see if there's any sort of like consistencies and anything that you can pick up from there when filling data in. So for Lee's surname is Thomas. So I'm going to type the first one in, which is absolutely fine. When I fill Thomas all the way down though, you can see it's repeated it. So Thomas, Thomas, Thomas. Not where I wanted Thomas, then Smith, then Zeph. If I have a look at the autofill options, it's none of these first three, but this Flashfill option, if I select Flashfill, Excel will then look at the surrounding cells for something that it's got in common. So I type Thomas, and it can see Thomas in the cell to the left, and it does exactly the same for the remaining cells, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, to be honest, you don't even have to use the Flashfill option. I'm just going to delete these cells. I'm going to type Thomas in one more time, and Excel will also watch what you're doing and give you some hints as to, I think you're looking for this. So in the next cell down, if I start typing Smith, I've only typed the S, and Excel has typed the rest in, and I don't know if you can see these greyed out suggestions from Excel looking at me and thinking, I think this is what you want to do, and it's absolutely right. So I'm just going to press enter, and Flashfill is done for me. So look over that Flashfill, it's perfect for pulling information from or joining information to surrounding cells. And just one more tag that we've got here. There's a tab called the Quick Analysis Tools, and the Quick Analysis Tools appear automatically when you select a range in Excel that the program can see a reason for analysing. For example, if I highlight all these numbers in here, I get the Quick Analysis Tools underneath, and from the Quick Analysis Tools, there are a number of features. So I can see the numbers here. 100's probably the biggest, 2 is the lowest, but I'm having to look and read the numbers to find those trends. Now, data bars are like in-cell charts, so the bigger the number, the bigger the bar. So let's have a look at the Quick Analysis Tools, and from the Formatting tab, I'm just going to put data bars in, which is perfect because I can now see the bigger the bar, or the smaller the bar, the bigger or smaller the number. If the number changes, the bar changes to reflect it. So similarly, we're looking at formulas today, but if you want to quickly put a formula in, so I've highlighted the numbers, and from the Quick Analysis Tools, I would like to put a total in, but I want an average. And there we go. It puts the formula in for me without me having to do it manually. And even highlight the numbers, use the Quick Analysis Tools to maybe quickly create yourself a chart to graphically display your data. There are a couple of tags there, the autofill options that we were looking at. We also had a look at the Flashfill options and the Quick Analysis Tools too. So let me go back to my spreadsheet. Okay, the main reason for this webinar though today is to give you an idea of formulae and functions and how they work in Excel. So I'm going to start off with a worksheet called Basics. So I've just got some very simple calculations here that we're going to put together. So when you're using calculations, the basic calculations that you have, the symbols on your keyboard, you've got the plus to add, the minus to subtract. You wouldn't use a cross or the X to multiply, you would use an asterisk. And for divide, it's the / symbol. So I'm going to start by putting a few formulas together using plus, minus, multiply and divide. All formulas in Excel start with an equals. The equals at the beginning tells Excel, I'm not just typing this in, I actually want you to calculate it for me. So I'm looking at this lunch, I need to work out how much the lunch costs. I put the equals in, and the apple was 50p, so I'm going to put 0.5. And after that figure, I'm going to put the operator in, so plus another 0.5 plus 2. So 50p, 50p and £2. And whenever you put anything in Excel, you have to accept the contents. And to do that, you can use your tab key at the left of your keyboard. You can use the enter or tick on the ribbon, or I press the enter key is my sort of like go-to button. So tick, tab or enter. I'm just going to press enter to calculate my figure. Now you can type numbers in. I'm just going to double click on the cell to see the formula, although it shows me up in the formula bar at the top of the screen. The idea of the formula bar being it shows you your workings out and then the cell shows you the answer. But if you double click on a cell, you get to see the formula in here too. So the downside of typing numbers in is there might be quite a lot of £2 in my spreadsheet. And if I double click on this formula, I don't know which two that's talking about. Is it that one, that one, that one, that one, or that one? No idea. So, and also, if the numbers change, so that sandwich has gone up to £3 now. Total didn't change though. So the total is still doing 50p plus 50p plus £2, which is what I typed in. So if the values change in the spreadsheet, you're going to have to manually change the calculation, which isn't very efficient, and you may find you forget to do that and send out figures that are wrong. So a better way of working with Excel is to use cell references. So here in cell E12, I need to know I've been buying a few pairs of shoes while I've been on lockdown. I bought 4 pairs at 50p. So rather than typing in 4 times 50, the number of shoes is in cell B12 and the price is in C12. There is only one cell reference B12 in here using that grid system. So Excel can only pull the figures from here, unlike when we typed all these 2's in, it could be any one of them. So again, I'm going to start the formula with equals. And when you reference in cells, you can type them in. So the number of pairs bought is in cell B12. And I need to multiply that, so use the asterisk, by the price per pair, which is in cell C12. And I get corresponding colours and cell references, just to give me that visual indicator that I've got the right thing. Again, I'm going to press enter to accept, but tick, tab and enter will do. And the difference of using cell references to typing numbers in is, as I mentioned, there is only one cell B12 on this worksheet. There's B12 on the other sheets, but on this one, there's only one of them. If I change the number, the value that's in B12, so let's say I bought 5 pairs of shoes now, at £50, the total changes. And let's say I've got a discount now because I bought 5 pairs. Okay, the value changes. Okay, another example. So we've had a look at typing numbers in and we've had a look at typing cell references in. You actually don't have to type the cell reference in, because that in itself can be quite time consuming. So Johnny's pocket money is in column A, row 19, so A19. And I don't really need to worry about the cell reference. All I need to worry about is the number, which I can see. So this time I'm going to put the equals in as standard to start the formula off. But I'm just going to click on the £10 that I want to include in the cell reference. So Excel has then typed that cell reference in for me, and I don't need to worry about it. So Johnny's pocket money is started off with £10, and then I'm going to minus the amount he spent on sweets, and then I'm going to minus the amount he spent on a toy. And I think you'll agree clicking on a cell reference is much quicker than typing the cell reference in. And again, we get those colour visuals, that colour coding to represent the cells. Enter, and we get the total. Again, because we're using cell referencing, any changes to the values would update the total. Just one last one. I'm going to click where I want if we've got a lottery winnings, and I want to know how much each person gets. So we've won 2,000, 3 people in the syndicate. I'm going to start off with equals. This time, instead of clicking, I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard, so just use the cursor keys to move around. Now you'll notice the cell reference in the formula here, it's changing. Every time I press the arrow key, it's changing. And you just keep moving around until you get to the cell that you want to include in the formula. So I've just rested on cell B26, which is the 2000. As soon as I type the operator in, so as soon as I type divide, the marching ant stops moving around the cell, so Excel now thinks you've confirmed that. And then you can start moving around again to include the next cell in the formula. So just move around as much as you want. And then when you're rested on the cell, enter to accept it. So putting formulas in, you can type in the cell number, you can type the cell reference, you can click the cell, or you can move to it using your arrow keys, or a mixture of all of those. So it's easy enough for you to put the formulas in and gives you that flexibility as well. So I want to move on now and have a look at other formulas and what else you can do with them. The 2 worksheets here called Jamboree, or any of the blue ones, I'm not going to go through with you today. Those are just for you to have a practice after the webinar's finished. So I'm going to go to the worksheet this time called Playtime. I'll just make that a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. So in the last example, we had 4 very separate formulas, but each one of them just used one operator. So for like Johnny's pocket money, it was this value minus this minus this. So it's a minus minus that we used, or a plus plus that we used for the lunch. And it was just 4 very different formulas. Here in column E, I want to work out how many sweets each person is going to give to their friends. And the formula is going to be the same for each one. So for Hannah, it's going to be 95 sweets divided by 5 friends to give the total. Same formula for Lauren, 78 sweets though, so a different number, divided by 6 friends. And I want to know the total. So if we start off looking at the first formula, so Hannah's got 95 jelly babies, so I'm going to equals and click on the 95. And that 95 is going to be divided by the 5 friends. Now notice Hannah's record is on row 3 of the spreadsheet, and the formula is referencing row 3. So the number of sweets in C3 divided by the number of friends in D3. The formula for Lawrence is going to be exactly the same, but Lawrence's record is on row 4, not row 3. These cell references that I've put in this formula here are what are called relative cell references. So it's just a column followed by the row number, and they're relative to where the formula is. So this formula is looking left 2 cells divided by left 1 cell. So 2 cells to the left divided by 1 cell to the left. And it's going to be the same for Lawrence, but on row 4. So I'm just going to enter to accept that formula, so we get a total of 19 for Hannah. If I then drag the formula down using that autofill feature, the formula will become relative to the row. So if I double click on Lawrence's, just like Excel did with the dates, we started off when we used control semicolon, it gave us the 5th of June. But then when I filled it down, it dropped it down 1 to the 6th of June and down, 7th, 8th. And it's done exactly the same here. So C3 divided by D3 has become C4 divided by D4. So it's become relative to the next row down. And then relative to the next row down again, relative again, and relative again. So once you've got your first formula right, that's it. Just fill it down. It's not a problem. So let's have a look at our income sheet. Okay, I think we can all relate to this. We go out and work a bit of hard graft, and every month we get some money coming in, but then everybody wants a bit of money going out. So I'm going to click where the balance is going to go at the bottom and start it off with equals. So I've got my monthly income, which is in B3, and then I'm going to deduct the mortgage minus the pension minus the insurance and the gas and the electric and the phone and everything else that everybody wants a little bit of. So we can see that the cell references here are all referenced in column B. Now I want the same formula for February, but I want the B's to change to C's, so become relative. And then for March, the C's should become D's. So I'm going to press enter, grab hold of the autofill handle, but drag across this time rather than down. And if I double click, you can see that the cells have become relative to the next column along and the next column along, and so on. Copy and paste does the same thing, by the way. Okay. So far, like this formula, yes, we've included lots and lots of different cells, but they're all minus, 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 minus. So the next thing I want to have a look at is what happens if you've got a minus and a plus and a divide and a multiply, or a mixture of those in your formula. Excel's got an order of precedence for how it calculates these figures. So I've just gone onto the sales worksheet here. So it's a little bit of an extension of the spreadsheet that we were looking at on the getting started sheet. So we've just got a few more figures in here, and I need to work out the subtotals. So let's have a look at the figures. So starting off with, the unit price is £7. So Lee's been selling t-shirts at £7, but then been discounting them by £2. So in my head, 7 minus 2 gives me 5. So there's 2 of those t-shirts have been sold at that figure. So 5 times 2 should give me a subtotal of 10. So let's have a look at putting the formula in. So I'm going to do equals the unit price, the £7, then minus the discount value of £2, times by the quantity sold. When I press enter, so remember guys, we should get 10 here, but I don't, I get 3. So just using your questions panel, can anybody tell me what I've done wrong, if I've got something missing, or what I should be considering here? Anybody know what's missing out of that formula? Andrew, Sarah, okay, we've got brackets is coming in. Daniel says bidmus, brackets, need brackets. Bodmus, says Sarah, brackets, Bodmus. So quite a few of you know exactly what's going on, what's missing. So 2 things that came, well, 3, brackets, bidmus and Bodmus. I'm just going to press enter, and I'm going to go back into my presentation for a second. This is just an acronym as an easy way to remember the order of precedence for your formulas. It's a little bit like your ABC for maths. So Excel takes absolutely no notice of how you type the formula in. When you press enter, Excel will always perform the formula in this order. So brackets comes first. Now, who was it? So Sarah says Bodmus, but Daniel says Bidmus. I suppose my age, I go for Bodmus because I always think of brackets, ordinals, or other, or to the power of. Bidmus is indices. It means exactly the same thing. So things like to the power of, square root, and other indices. So Bodmus, Bidmus interchanging. If you've got somebody who's doing the GCSE sat with you, they'll be screaming Bidmus, but same thing. So anything in brackets is done first. Then any indices or ordinals, it will then divide, followed by multiply, add, and subtract. So our formula, essentially, even though we type the minus in first, when we press enter, Excel will go, right, there's nothing in brackets, no ordinals, no divide. Okay, there's a multiply in there. So it will take the 2 and multiply by the 2 to give us a subtotal of 4. And because it already has that now subtotal of 4, all that's left for it to do is take the 7 and deduct that 4 to give us that wrong answer of 3. And what a lot of you are saying there is we need brackets. So because brackets are always calculated first in a formula, so if we said do that bit first, work out what 7 minus 2 is first. So 7 minus 2 would give us a subtotal of 5. And then all that's left is that 5 times 2, which gives us that correct answer of 10 that we're looking for. Just before I go back and put these brackets in the formula, in actual fact, multiply and divide are interchangeable. So those are kind of interchangeable in those two. Add and subtract together are also interchangeable. But divide, multiply would always come before add and subtract. So let's go see what those brackets actually do to our formula. So I'm going to double click on the cell. So what it should have done is taken the D4 and minus the E4. So that would work out what 7 minus 2 is before it times it by the quantity of 2. And that incorrect answer of 3 now gives us a correct answer of 10. Just as another tip for you, we've been looking at getting hold of the autofill handle and dragging it down. Excel, when you're using autofill, will look at the cells at either side of the cell that you're filling down, and it will see here that column F finishes on row 13. So if I double click, it automatically fills it down to the length of the surrounding cells, which is great if you're having to drag down a couple of hundred rows. Those are also relative cell references. So if I double click on any one of the formulas, the formula has become relative to that row, and the brackets remain so that the formula is giving us a correct answer. If you're ever unsure, get your calculator out and try it. But over time, you'll get to trust Excel and you'll throw your calculator away. So we've done relative cell referencing, quite a bit on relative cell referencing there. There's 2 types of cell reference in Excel. Well, I suppose there's 3. You've got a relative cell reference and you've got an absolute cell reference. And you've also got a mixed one, but relative and absolute cell referencing. I'm not sure if I was right in Excel whether I would use the word absolute. I don't think it describes it. If you think about a fixed cell reference or a constant cell reference, because in this example here, in column H, I need to work out the sales commissions. And it's quite a simple formula, so I'm going to do equals. So to work out the sales commission, I'm going to take the subtotal that Lee got. Now for Lee, that's picked up cell G4, £10. I would want that to be relative so that it picks up G5 for Chris, and then G6 for Alex, and G7 for Mel, and so on. So G4 can stay as a relative cell reference. However, if I multiply that by the 12% in H2, the 12% is in H2. It's not in H3, it's not in I2, it's not in G1, it's in H2. It's in one cell. So when I fill the formula down, I certainly don't want that to change to H3 and then H4. It needs to be constant, it needs to be fixed at cell H2. In order to fix a cell reference, I'm going to have to type something in the cell to tell Excel, it's almost like a little bit of a code, to tell it, fix it. When I fill it down, make sure that H2 is a constant. Come on then, let's have a go with your questions panel, see if anybody can tell me what symbol do I need. So Katie straight away with a dollar, John, dollar, Jeanette. Does anybody know what the keyboard shortcut is though to put the dollars in? Richard, it is F4. It is F4. Thank you. Fantastic. Katie got F. Oh, Katie, it's just F4, not Shift and 4. Michelle, it's F4. Perfect. So let me just go back, for those of you that maybe not seen this, let me just go back to my presentation and just move on. So relative cell references, one's the way if you drag it down, the 4 would become 5, or if you drag it across, the A becomes B, and so on. So relative cell references are just the column, letter, and the row number. Now, because the cell is made up of 2 parts, column, letter, row number, absolute cell reference, when it comes to fixing, you're going to need to fix both elements of it. So the dollar before the A is basically telling Excel, if you drag it across, don't change it to B and then C and then D. And the dollar before the 4 is telling Excel, if you drag it up, keep it as 4, don't change it to 3. And if you're dragging it down, don't change it to 5 and then 6, keep it as 4. So we need $2 really if we want to fix a whole cell reference. So fix column A, row 4. Now if I go back to my spreadsheet, and the reason the keyboard shortcut is really handy for this is if you put the dollars in the wrong place, so typing them in, shift and number 4, if I put the dollars in the wrong place, you can see that that colour coding's disappeared off. Excel's just thinking, I've no idea what you're talking about. So in order for you to put the dollars in the right place, you use the keyboard shortcut, which will put them in for you. And an easy way to remember this, to type a dollar in, you would use shift and number 4. But going up from that, the shortcut on the F keys across the top of your keyboard, just press F4. No shift or no control, just F4. And Excel will put the dollars in for you. That's its keyboard shortcut, and they will be in the right place, so you don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to press enter now, fill this formula down, and if I have a look at any one of them, the first cell reference G4 has become relative to G5 and then relative to G6, but all the dollars have done is saying, yeah, but the percentage is in H2. It's in H2, it's always in H2, don't change it. So they're all looking back at H2. I could have typed in G4 times 12%, but then if the percentage changes, so let's change that to 15, I'd have had to have gone back to change all the formulas. But now all of these cells are looking back at that one cell, they're all looking back at H2, change that to 15%. As soon as I press enter, all of the formulas will update. So each one of them is updated. Same formula, let's make it a bit bigger, 50%, and there we go, they all update. The last topic I'm going to look at today is functions. So I'm just going to go across, again, I'm not going to go through the blue worksheets with you. I'm going to go to fruit here. Excel has hundreds and hundreds, sorry, that's my phone ringing in the background. Excel has hundreds and hundreds some of them are quite specific to spreadsheets, so some of them are specific to engineering, for example, and then some of them are standard that everybody would use. Doesn't matter what job you do. For example, you're going to want to add up a list of figures. All functions in Excel, if I have a look at my formula bar at the beginning, it says that there's a feature here to insert function. So I've just clicked on a random cell and I'm going to have a look at insert function. Notice how Excel typed the equals in, it knows I'm going to need it. So there are so many functions, Excel's decided it's going to have to group them into different categories. So the most recently used ones are here. So these are the 10 functions that I've used most recently on my PC. Haven't actually used all those. The other categories, so for example, we have logical functions, and we have math and trig functions. So there's quite a lot in here. And you can see how many there is. And when you click on a function, Excel down at the bottom then tells you what the function does. So ACOS returns the inverse hyperbolic cosine of a number. I've got to be honest, I've never needed to do that. I remember doing sines and cosines and logarithms and tangents and things at school, but I've never actually needed them. But there are certain functions, like the sum function, adds all the numbers in a range of cells. Everybody needs that. If you're going to use Excel, you're going to need to add 2 or 3 numbers in a list, rather than doing A1 plus A2 plus A3 plus A4. Add them up using a function. Above here, Excel tells me this is how you're going to need to write the function. I'm just going to cancel out of here. So all functions are written in the same way. They all start with an equals. You then have a function name, which is followed by an open bracket. Inside your bracket goes your arguments, and where you've got an open bracket, you need a closed bracket. So different functions need different arguments in the middle. The sum function, all it needs to know from you is numbers, and usually that's a range of numbers. So you'd put in the start cell and a colon, which acts like the word to, the end cell, and always close your brackets. And they're always written in the same way. Now, if you're using the same function over and over again, typing it in is really easy. But if it's a function that you use once in a blue moon, so maybe once at month end, it is sometimes easier to use the insert function feature because it will walk you through the process and fill the formula in for you. So Excel's already typed the equals in there, haven't done any typing. I click on the sum function and it's saying I need numbers from you. Okay, like the start and end cell. Watch the formula bar as soon as I click OK. Excel's actually typed in sum of, and it's assumed I want B11 to K11, so I'm just going to delete that so it's got it wrong. So it says here, give me a number. So that could be an individual number. So I click on it, and it says you can have more if you want, so I click on number 2. And that could be a range of numbers, so from there to there and everything else in between. And I could go on and on and on. And I haven't typed anything. All I've done is filled in the blanks using the function arguments. So if there's a function that you use occasionally, then consider using insert function because it tells you what the function does. It gives you hints as you click in the boxes, and it will type the formula in for you with all the commas and the brackets and everything that you need. Okay, so that's just a random total. So let's have a look at some different ways of putting functions in. By the way, all the formulas are also in your formulas tab in this little function library area. And on a drop-down list, as I mentioned, for example, there's a whole load of functions that's specifically for engineering that I've never even heard of them. But let's go back here and have a look at typing functions in. So I've clicked where I want my apples totals to go. I could do equals B5 plus B6 plus B7 plus B8, but using that method would be easy to maybe miss a cell or put one in twice. So instead, I'm going to do equals. So it's a formula. Now, when you type a letter after an equals, like an S, Excel comes up and says, oh, you must be putting a function in then. This is everything I've got beginning with an S. Well, there's a lot beginning with an S, so the more you type, the closer you get. So I've got SU, and I can see the sum function here. Clicking on it once, just a single click, tells me what the function does. Excuse me, adds all the numbers in a range of cells, which is exactly what I wanted. Now I could type in the M for sum and then the open bracket, but if I just double click, Excel types it in for me. Perfect. Now on the screen, because I've opened the brackets, Excel stops telling me what the sum function does and starts giving me a hint as to the arguments, what I need to put in the brackets. So it says, give me some numbers. Right, okay, well, for apples, I need to start off with the January figure and finish at December, all in column B. And it's just a swift click and drag to highlight the formula. So you don't have to worry about typing in the colon. Excel will do that for you. And if you've got the wrong cells, just like changing pictures and photographs and making them bigger, you've got these little handles so you can extend the range to make sure that you've grouped and collected the correct range. As always, enter, and we've now got a total. There's lots of things in Excel that start with the auto. So we've seen autofill earlier. You've got auto fit for columns. There's also, if I go back to home, you've got it on formulas, but mostly people work on home. At the right-hand side of your home ribbon tab, we've got auto sum, automatically put the sum function in for me. So nothing in the cell, don't type the equals in, don't need that. Excel's going to automatically do it. So auto sum. And Excel looks at where it's sitting and thinking, right, I've got numbers above here. I'm assuming that's what you want. So it's done a guess. It's got it right. So it's just up to you to check. Are the marching ants going around the right cells? Yes, they are. It looks okay to me. Press enter. Perfect. So you can use insert function. You can type the function in if you know how to put them in. If it's a popular function like the statistical ones, you can use AutoSum. Once you've got one function in, then you can just go and drag it like we were doing earlier. So for oranges, it's summing up C5 to C16. For pears, we want that to become relative to column D, then E, F and G. So I'm just going to grab that, drag it all the way across. And if I double click, I can see for pears, the C's have become D's, whoops, and then E's, F's, and G's. So really I could have done that with the start one, with the very first one. I just wanted to give you some examples. Please don't trust that AutoSum gets everything right first time. It doesn't. So I'm going to click in H5 where the January total is going to go. And this time, so I want to add these ones. I want to, what's the total for January? So I click where I want the answer to go and AutoSum. Check the marching ants, has it got it right? So column B to column G, row 5, B5 to G5, yes it has, and enter. Now I know I could fill that down, I just want to show you something for you to watch out for when you're working with Excel. So for February, AutoSum, are those the right cells? Yes they are, press enter. Just one more, for March, AutoSum, okay. Now looking at the marching ants that we've got here, Excel has decided to add up the numbers above where it's sat rather than from the left and the right. So just always making sure that it's got the right cells. If this happens, it's no big deal. You just get, like you did with the first one, get your mouse, put your mouse on the first cell that you want to include and drag across to the last one. So you're just basically saying, actually not those ones, these ones please, and enter. Once you've got that, obviously, you can fill it down, but just please be careful. Make sure you do check the marching ants, because it is possible to just double click on AutoSum and it puts the formula in. And because I didn't check it, it's actually adding the wrong ones up. I could send that spreadsheet out. I don't know that they don't add up to 14,500. So just be careful. Bye, Bill. So Bill just has to drop off. We are nearly at the end anyway. So just some quick hints for you. I'm just going to delete these and delete these. So with AutoSum, we click where we want the answer to go, we click AutoSum, we check it, we press enter, we go back and fill it across, which is 5 moves. Or what would happen if we just highlight the empty cells where we want the answer to go? That's the equivalent of autofill, and then AutoSum. 2 moves instead of 5. What happens if we do the same here? Well, because it's filling these in at the same time, I don't need to worry about the adding up and down. So just 1 and 2 moves. Perfect. Look at that. Or, you think that's good? If I highlight all the numbers that I want to include to add up, but then also highlight the empty cells that I want Excel to fill in. So I've highlighted these empty cells and these empty cells as a hint to say to Excel, fill them in, both in please. That's 1 move is select, AutoSum, table's done, all done. Some of the other statistical functions are exactly the same as the sum function. So the average function is exactly the same as sum. To work an average out manually, I would need to take the total and divide by the number of individual figures. So 18,658 divided by 12. That would give me an average. Or, again, I'm just going to click where I want the average to go. Don't type the equals in. I'm not going to click on AutoSum. I'm going to use the drop down arrow and ask Excel to give me an average function. Just like sum, it gives you the marching ants. Oh, it's not quite got it right. I need it to finish at row 16. Otherwise, if I include the total, I won't get a true average. So I'm just going to find that bottom corner with a 2-headed arrow and just change the range. So find me an average of that. Brilliant. Minimum. So what was the worst month? So that could be quite time consuming for you to go down the list and find the minimum. Click where you want the answer to go. Don't press AutoSum. Use the drop down arrow and min. That's the wrong cell. These ones, please. So find the minimum of those, please. And like minimum, opposite, to find the maximum can be quite time consuming, done manually. If we find the max, wrong cells again, Excel, it's these ones, please. And finally, how many cells have got numbers in? And we're just going to count, and it should tell me that there's 12 cells there with numbers in. All the way across, highlight all 4, autofill, and the spreadsheet's done. So I think what we set out to do today, to have a look at autofill, some of the auto functions, putting simple calculations in, understanding bidmas, bodmas, relative and absolute cell referencing, and just getting started with functions, I think we've pretty much covered. I'm looking at the questions and I haven't got any questions in there. Does anybody else have any questions? So Sue's just asking about the pivot table one from yesterday. It's on our website. If I go on to, if you go to smartstyle.co.uk, this week's ones are not on yet, but there will be pivot table ones from last week and Excel from last week. Just hover over courses, and then down at the bottom go into daily digital digest webinars. So yeah, please go and have a look at the previous recordings on there. So you want Claire wants a copy of the PowerPoint? Yeah, no problem. I can start because I'm going to send the spreadsheet anyway because some people had issues downloaded it. So good question from Katie. If you wanted to miss a cell range out, so I'm just going to click here and do equals, and I want to do, let's say for apples, January, February, March to May, but then I want to do October to December. So here, oops, might need some in it. If I spell that right, some of those. Now if you put a comma in, then you can select number 2 range, comma, next range, comma, next range. Or you can use Control key to select a range of cells, and that will type the comma in. Hopefully that answers your questions. Are there any Andrew's asking, are there any courses next week? Unfortunately not, because of other work commitments, but we will be looking at putting them on sort of going forward. Even when things get back to normal, these have proved really popular, so we're thinking to make it a regular occurrence. So watch this space, and all the links are on that website that I showed you as well. Yes, Joanne, I'll send everybody a copy of those 3. So average, click where let me go through with the average again. Click where you want the answer to go. Drop down arrow on AutoSum and select average. And then just make sure you've got the right cells selected and enter. I think that's it for questions. You all know where I am if you want to get in touch with me. So I'll just say thank you very much for attending. Watch this space for future webinars. So watch this courses daily digital digest. Watch this space. We'll send out confirmation links anyway, but all the registration links like this week's ones are on here, so please feel free to use that and share it with anybody who you might find useful. So I hope to see you on a future webinar soon. I don't know when that will be, but take care. Thank you very much, and stay safe.